All right, here we are, my third and hopefully final Olympics video. I really have to say that I've never seen an exercise in gaslighting quite as brazen as what we saw in Paris the past 3 weeks. Just absolute shamelessness, um, and very poorly disguised symbolism. And what we're going to get into now is the closing ceremonies. Not all of them, not all of the events and set pieces that they had, just basically what we're seeing on screen here, okay? Because this was just kind of comical in a way, kind of absurd, if you get my meaning. So, yes, the Saturnic Rites of Olympia. And you get a cookie if you can figure out what I'm referencing with that title. So, as I said in my first video, this was a disaster. This whole production was just very poorly planned and very poorly executed. And the bad news kind of has outweighed the good news. They've tried to gin up some excitement over the Olympics, but I think that people are just coming away feeling slightly queasy. And there's our friend Dionysus and the trans Last Supper and so on that we've talked about. Everybody's talked about. Everybody's familiar with this by now. No mystery to anyone, right? No mystery to anyone. All right, here we go. Just turn this up a wee bit. Wee bit. Okay. There we go. So, as I said in the previous video, this whole thing was pretty blatant, pretty obvious Mithraism, and we see Mithras' Phrygian cap here as the official mascot of Paris Olympics. A lot of people are fooled by the whole liberty thing, but if you're familiar with the history, you know exactly what you're looking at. And there it is right there. There is Emperor Jupiter with Phrygi, as they call him, the Phrygian cap and the Phrygian cap of Mithras. The concocted Roman god of empire, okay? This is all very imperial stuff here. I think it's a lot of wishful thinking, but we'll get into that. So what is this all about? What is the point of this? What is this all about? Well, as we discussed in the last video, a lot of it is about the fact that the Mithraic religion has a liturgy that allows one to directly contact the ultra-terrestrials, aka the Watchers, aka whomever, aliens, fallen angels, whatever you choose to call them. But there's also a deeper inclination behind all of this, and that is this: rising above the prison of time. So there is Mithras at Rockefeller Center, called Prometheus, clearly not Prometheus, clearly a very almost orthodox depiction of Mithras being born from the rock, rising above the prison of the zodiac, okay? The prison of the zodiac. That is his promise to his followers, that you will escape the prison of time, okay? The prison of time. Now, as I discussed, this is all based on Perseus. So probably there was a hero cult at the core of all this, but you can see in this chart here, you can see Perseus rising above the zodiac, rising above Aries and Taurus and Gemini. And next to him, of course, is Auriga, the Good Shepherd, the House of David, okay? That's what that's all about. And Triangulum, yes, we'll get into that. We'll get into that. But this is what basically it promises, that you will rise above the constraints of time and your immortal soul will travel the stars. Okay? That's basically the promise of all of this. And that's also inherent in the liturgy. Okay? And I guess in the liturgy, the aliens will will take you there, but we'll get into that some other time. Now, of course, besides that, this is all identified with Saturn. Now, why Saturn? You hear a lot of nonsense about Saturn, okay, and Saturn worship. There's a lot of really bad information that was put up by some rather stupid people that just keeps getting cut and pasted over and over and over and over and over again until it becomes truth or perceived as truth. It's not. Basically, if you are familiar with the thinking of the ancients, they believe that the souls of men or exalted men, powerful men, would escape the limitations, like I said, of the zodiac, but also get past Saturn, who is the final boss of the archons, okay, the planets. Saturn was the outermost planet, and it's the outermost planet visible to the naked eye. You cannot see Neptune, you cannot see Uranus, you cannot see Pluto, okay? You can only see Saturn. That's as far out as it goes, okay? Ancient Greeks associated the planet with their god Cronus, okay? Time, escaping time, all right? That's what we're talking about here. That's exactly what we're talking about here. And notice that Saturn has been studied by Voyager 1, and that sort of plays into the cover story with another Saturnian figure that we're going to pay close attention to here, okay? So, what about the hymn to Apollo? Yes, the hymn to Apollo and the upright piano or the suspended piano. What is this all about? Is this Apollo as we're familiar with Apollo, or is this a different figure? Well, if you're familiar with my work, you know for sure that it's a different figure, but what figure is it? Who is this Apollo that they're hymning to, okay? Just take a look at that piano. Now, this is the chap, an opera singer, singing the hymn to Apollo, which I believe is Orphic. It goes back a very long way. And he's in the midst of all these NPCs, quite literally, climbing on these rings. And we'll get into what those rings represent, because it's all tied into what I talked to about before, okay? And there he is with the black pearls. Yes, the black pearly dewdrops on his jacket there, okay? Singing to Apollo. But which Apollo? Which Apollo? You know, there are a number of different Apollos. Apollo had many different guises, okay? It is Apollo Mithras, of course. How do we know this? Well, let's look. As the sun, Apollo Mithras may have been seen as the overseer and judge of the earth, as a fertility god, or as a god of victory and triumph. Okay, so this is not Apollo as maybe the Greeks knew him. This is Apollo Mithras. This is a different figure, okay? Now, this has to do with Roman sun worship and syncretism and all those kind of things, but that is exactly the Apollo who is being paid tribute to, okay? Apollo Mithras. Now, remember Apollo Mithras, and remember the associations with Saturn and escaping the confines of time, because we're going to see it right in front of us, okay? Now, as I said, the syncretism on the right, we have Helios, Sol, Apollo, known by a number of different names, a syncretic sun god, Mithraic sun god. And there's Mithras, just a couple of dudes hanging around in the nude on a couch, eating some grapes, drinking some wine out of bull's horns, okay? Just chilling out, just, you know, who doesn't do that, right? And of course, on the left is the Last Supper, Supper of the Gods, Feast of the Gods version of that. Notice the rays, the crowned with the sun. Notice the red, okay? Mithras' color is red, his native color is red, all right? So this is all rather blatant stuff, okay? And unfortunately, a lot of people just sort of have knee-jerk reactions because they're not familiar with what's going on, and that's why they always lose, okay? That's why these people here on the left always win, And everybody who's trying to question them or go against them always loses every single time because they don't do their homework, okay? This is a battle of wits, my friends, okay? I want everybody to get a lot smarter, and put away all the dopamine and adrenaline kind of junky stuff and get into the facts, or otherwise we're not going to make it, period. All right? Got to get smart, got to get very clever, or it's over. And I mean that. Okay. So on the left, there's the NPCs on these rings and the upright piano. This chap who was once a football player, soccer player, playing it with this rather garish and elaborate cloak. Okay, we'll get into the symbolism of that in just a moment. But we see this whole thing, the struggling against time. How do we know this is struggling against time? Well, I shall show you. So, the piano. The piano is a descendant of the lyre, another stringed instrument, a plucked stringed instrument. The lyre became the harp became the harpsichord, and the harpsichord became the piano eventually. Okay, so this is a lineage here. So when we see this chap playing the piano in that position, we are being referenced to Vega and Lyra, okay, and the ring nebula. Very, very important. So as I've explained and I've shown step by step, that the eye in the pyramid on the back of the dollar bill is actually a very cleverly disguised depiction of Vega, okay? And the eye in the pyramid is the ring nebula, which was discovered while that seal was being designed, all right? And this is all very well known. This is not speculation. This has all been acknowledged. It's just that people don't read the history. But the dollar bill, both obverse and reverse, are both depictions of Vega, okay? And it's rather obvious when you see the images stacked together. Now, Lyra and Cygnus are, for some reason, a very great interest to, well, we see here the Kepler telescope and the various space agencies, quote unquote, seem extremely interested in this area of space, Lyra and Cygnus. And Kepler was parked there for a number of years. Okay, and we've seen this symbolism over again. We saw Operation Cygnus, which was the very evil British government's very evil COVID plans. Okay, we've seen this symbolism over and over again. The swan, Cygnus, the swan. This is related to Apollo. The lyre is related to Apollo and such. But we see in this case that Apollo is Apollo Mithras. Just there are many Mithrases, many Apollos. And we're going to take a look at a couple here. All right, so there we go. There it is. All right. So take a nice close look at these rings that these NPCs, and they, I mean, it's like they are NPCs. It's like pretty classic. Wearing these full-bodied, these are the teeming masses whom the people who put on these productions hate so passionately, okay? Who have nothing but absolute contempt for and want to eliminate entirely, okay? So that's what we're looking at here. But just take a look at that ring. What does it look like to you? Well, we'll see in just a moment what it actually represents, but there it is. It's like they're building a stargate or a portal. Who is going to come through that portal? So here we see again, we see the chap singing a hymn to Apollo Mithras, and we see these NPCs struggling in vain against this ring. What does this ring represent? Okay, there it is again. There's another shot. This is the futility of the masses, of the futility of their striving, the futility of the uninitiated, the unenlightened, okay? This is the teeming masses desperately in need of enlightenment. From who and why? Why do they need this enlightenment? And again, I'm really starting to get so sick of all these rituals. It's really becoming a chore. But we see in the Olympics, and we see in a lot of these events, that they just see that the masses as this teeming horde. And even these athletes and so on, they're just depicted in these uniforms. They're no longer individuals, and we see them in this lighting. This very interesting lighting. Okay, we won't go into what that lighting is all about, but there it is. Now, a lot of people have noticed this. The Stargate, very clearly, very obviously paying tribute to the Stargate film. Um, Kurt Russell and so on, way back in the day. Okay, Jay Davidson, right? This is very clearly paying tribute to that. I don't think there's any mistake there. This shot is very purposefully executed. But what is the Stargate? What is this all about? What is the portal? What is the portal? Who is coming through the portal and how? Okay. Well, the portal is time. Remember, we just talked about overcoming time, escaping the prison of time. The teeming masses are prisoners of time, the unenlightened ones, the uninitiated. Okay, and if you just look at that right there, we've got. And I just marked the quarter hours, but you can clearly see that you can just fill in the clock face there, and it's inarguably that is what it is meant to represent. They are the prisoners of time. The masses, the unenlightened masses, are the prisoners of time, as opposed to the initiates who have overcome time. Okay? And here it is right here. In the pagan religion of Mithraism, the first principle is infinite time, also known as Aeon, Saculum, Chronos, or Saturnus. In Zoroastrian lore, Zervan is the personification of infinite time and space, and Ahura Mazda, the creator god, emerged from Zervan. Okay, and Zervan was adapted into Mithraism as Aeon, that chap with the lion head and the snakes and so on. Okay, we're going to see sort of a distant cousin of that very soon, but there we go. So it's all about time. It's like I said, it's all about escaping the prison of time. And that is the symbolism of Mithras rising above the zodiac, breaking out of the zodiac, bringing the fire of enlightenment, right? And also Saturn. Saturn is what you don't worship Saturn. You want to get past Saturn. You want to escape Saturn. That's the real purpose of all of this, okay? You want to transcend into infinite time and travel the stars for eternity. That's really what it's all about. Mithraic priests gave even more weight to Saturn than Neptunus, since Saturn was equated with the Titan Kronos, the Titans again, the Watchers, who is identified with the god of eternal time. Mithras, too, was represented as a youthful god of time. Remember that, a youthful god of time. While a sun god, he directed the course of the sun through the zodiac. That is why the leader of each Mithraic community, the father, Mithras' representative on Earth, was placed under the special protection of Saturn. Okay, time, escaping time, right? Time Lords. Okay, just go back to this situation, which I continue to be extremely suspicious of. All right, extremely concerned and worried about. But the Time Lord, okay, stabbed those little girls in Southport. Seems very strange timing to me indeed. All right. Now, the Golden Voyager. The Golden Voyager. Wow, look at that chap right there. That is rather unsettling looking, is it not? Is it not? All right. The Golden Voyager. What is this all about, my friends? What is this all about? Well, following the summoning, the hymn to Apollo, hymn to Mithras Apollo, this figure descends amidst the striving of the unenlightened masses who struggle against the prison of time. Okay, the prison of time. Not reaching the infinite time of the Mithraic initiate. Okay, that is what the purpose of it, all it is. And if you actually look at his hips, his pelvis area, it almost looks like a Baphomet kind of image there. So who is this chap here? This rather insectoid looking chap. What is his story? What is he all about? And here he is coming to help the unenlightened masses to create the portals to escape the bonds of time. And there we have this again. Okay. The portal's being raised into the Olympic rings. Okay. Time, infinite time, the loops. All right. And he climbs above he makes a human pyramid of sorts with these poor NPCs, these soulless automatons who do nothing but live to serve the elites. Okay. He is their master. He climbs above them. He is the pinnacle of human striving. So who is he? Who is this golden voyager at the Olympics closing ceremony in Paris? Who is this fellow? There he is again. Clearly looks rather winged to me, right? And has either ears or antenna, a skull-like face, and of course that Baphomet-looking pelvis there. This is a rather sinister-looking individual, wouldn't you say? This is not wholesome. And the first thing I thought of when I saw all those spikes was, of course, one of my favorite films of all time. And if you know, you know. Okay, we won't linger on that, but that's kind of my first impression. And this is my second impression, of course. Another one of my all-time favorite films, Frank, right? Frank. And we'll get into what that all entails, because you probably know what it all entails after I set the table. But there it is, a very skull-like face there on the golden voyager, right? Very golden skull look, very evil and threatening, I would say. Of course, Donnie Darko is all about escaping time, manipulating time, right? Overcoming the prison of time to save the girl you love. How does this all work, right? How does this all work? Donnie Darko. The Bunny Men. We did a whole presentation on that at the Secret Sun Institute. And boy, what a picture. So, of course, we get the usual knee-jerk gaslighting. I can't wait to conservatives to call a month... no, let's back up. I can't wait for conservatives to spend a month calling this a satanic bumblebee. Well, maybe it's a Saturnic bumblebee. I won't call it a satanic bumblebee, but I will call it a Saturnic bumblebee for very good reasons. And let's get into them. So if you notice, the golden voyager looks like he's covered in pollen, just like a bee. Yes. And don't forget the beehive is sacred to Masonic iconography, the beehive cluster in the constellation of Cancer. And that's what that's all about. All Masonic iconography is stellar, okay? All of it. So there is the Saturnic bumblebee. There it is, right? Covered in pollen. There we go. I don't think that is accidental. I think that's quite intentional. But we're going to continue because this is just a gold mine of weird occultic imagery. Now, let me just read this. In ancient Egyptian culture, bees were sacred to Ra, sun god and father of the gods. The Egyptians believed that Ra's tears transformed into bees and that the bees provided Ra's followers with honey, a liquid gold. The Egyptians also believed that bees were servants of the gods, delivering messages and healing powers to humanity. Okay, now there's an interesting thing about Ra, if you're familiar with Ra. Ra is a sun god, but the sun that he is the lord of is green. It is not our sun as we know it. It is a green sun. It is an alien green sun. But which sun is that? Greek and Latin astronomical texts show a mysterious confusion of the sun with the outermost planet, Saturn. The expression star of Helios or star of Sol was applied to Saturn. Okay? There we go. That's what it's all about. Of Babylonian star worshippers, Diodorus writes, to Saturn they gave a special name, sun star. Greek historian Nonus gives Kronos as the Arab name of the sun, though Kronos meant only Saturn and no other celestial body. Over and over again. And here's the money quote. A Greek ostracon cited by Franz Boll identifies the Egyptian sun god Ra not with our sun, but with the planet Saturn. Now, I'm not exactly sure what the connection with green and Saturn is, but I'm sure folks out there might be able to fill me in on what that's all about. Now, the first thing I thought of was that chap on the right, Beelzebub, okay? Beelzebub, a Philistine god, okay? A rendering of Baal, which is also, in this case, is also identified with Saturn, okay? So there we go. Another connection there, all right? Especially since we see this creature, this golden voyager, as it were, descending from the stars, okay? Ascending from the stars. Beelzebub, Lord of the Flies, Lord of the things that fly, Prince of the powers of the air, okay? That's where that comes from. Baal-zebub is translated literally as Lord of the Flies. It was long ago suggested there was a relationship between the Philistine god and cults of flies. Perhaps even bees, right? Would not surprise me. Alternatively, the deity's actual name could have been Baal-zabul, Lord of the heavenly dwelling. Baal-Hamon, however, was identified with the Greek Kronos and the Roman Saturn as the Zabul Saturn, okay? So it's all rather interrelated and all points to Saturn. There are some Baals that are actually Jupiter or Zeus, okay? And Zeus is Satan, the Lord of this world. And you read your Bible carefully, you will realize that rather quickly, all right? Now, somebody had put up this meme on Twitter in the same way that the London Olympics seemed to presage the corona pandemic, that this was presaging a outbreak of yellow fever by infected mosquitoes. So obviously the yellow fever, the yellow pollen. I'm not necessarily inclined to agree with this analysis. I think the other connections are a little bit more compelling, but this is very interesting to me, which is why I included it. Now, the fly. Oh my goodness, the fly. This brings us right back to the same neighborhood where we started, okay? There is Algol, the demon's head, the eye of Medusa, right? The eye in the triangle, in this case, is the eye of Horus, right? The Egyptians knew Algol as the eye of Horus in the triangulum constellation. And this old constellation, which was actually just moved south of the celestial equator, Musca, the fly, and there is Perseus, aka Mithras. All right, there we go. It's all very tightly interconnected. Okay, so this is where we get this kind of symbolism. Musca, the fly. All right, it's all stellar. Okay, it's all stellar. And of course, we see Perseus rising above the zodiac, right? The ecliptic, Taurus, Aries, all that kind of thing. And this was a strange story that seems to me a bit ritualistic. Olympic cameraman stopped filming field hockey to focus on a cockroach in the game's final minutes, baffling fans. Okay, so a cockroach could be identified with a fly, certainly. Insect vermin, coprophages, as it were, but also perhaps with the scarab beetle. Okay, so there might be a double meaning there. But that is a very curious thing, but seems to me, right on point for the kind of ritualism that I've talked about for many, many years now. And another, somebody else on Twitter pointed out that it reminded him of the Mothman, which is another excellent connection there. Another insect man, right? There we go. And look at that. I really see Baphomet there. Does anybody see that? The horns, the ram's horns, right? There it is. There it is. And then there was this animated animated sequence here with this shape-shifting cartoon character at one point turns into Thunderbird, the Native American Thunderbird, which has been identified with Mothman, okay? They've both been seen as similar creatures, okay? The closing ceremony, welcome the Golden Voyager. Now let's get into this gaslighting here, because it's absolutely absurd. The Stade de France has now been transformed into a giant theater, dark and mysterious. It's spine-chilling, literally so. From the sky, a golden voyager appears. This character is inspired by references from French history, including the spirit of the Bastille. Indeed. The character was inspired by a number of references from France's historical heritage, starting with the spirit of the Bastille, according to the creators. Lies. It also references the Genie de la Liberté, also called the Genie de la Bastille, bronze statue cast in 1836 by Auguste Dumont. The statue represents liberty and surmounts the July column in the place of the Bastille in Paris. Okay. Yeah, well, let's dig into that, because this is just more blatant gaslighting in some ways, and in some ways not. Just not in the ways that they want us to think, right? So there is the Golden Voyager on the left, and there is the spirit of the Bastille, or the spirit of liberty, or the Genie of Liberty, as they call it. Yes, who is that? Oh, well, we've seen him before. Of course, that's Mithras. Yet again, with the torch. Yes, yes. And what is that? A six-pointed star. So there's very Saturnian symbolism there. Oh, my goodness. And the world's egg, right? The omphalos. Rather traditional Mithraic iconography. Yes, so the Golden Voyager is Mithras, right? Identified with Saturn and all the rest of it. And it's just even more obvious here. There's a replica of the Genie of Liberty, or Spirit of the Bastille, or God knows what else. And he's got a 5-pointed star on his head, right? So that seems to identify him with Venus, or perhaps as Venus is known, the morning star, Lucifer, Phanes, Mithras Phanes, okay? But just look at those images there. Rather obvious what we're looking at here. That is Mithras. And as I said, Mithras was very big during the French Revolution, and the symbolism should not surprise anyone whatsoever. And just in case you're unsure, there's another comparison. That is Mithras Phanes as the spirit of communication, aka the genius of electricity, and there's the genius of liberty. Okay, all the same kind of symbolism. See these standing up atop the world's egg, right? The omphalos, the Orphic egg. There we go. It's all the same symbolism. All the same symbolism. And I think it should be rather obvious. Now, the image on the left, of course, is the symbol of AT&T, and the symbol on the right is the symbol of the French Republic. So just more Mithraic symbolism. You go to the very top of every pyramid, you're going to find Mithras there, folks. No two ways about it. And there's this little interesting imagery here. They're actually unfurling the Greek flag, but the way this is set up here reminded me of this. Yes, the torchbearers. See that? We have the Mithraic figure in the center, or the crypto-Mithraic figure in the center, and the two heralds or torchbearers, just as we see here with Mithras and the two torchbearers representing, of course, Castor and Pollux, Gemini, Boaz and Jachin. Okay, there we go. That's and Mithras slays the bull to escape the prison of time, the prison of the zodiac, and that's what that symbolism entails. All right, there it is. And there's the crow, also related to Apollo. Okay, Corvus. Corvus. Now, this herald on the right, we discussed this figure before. This is the horsewoman who leaves behind her masculinity and achieves angelhood. achieves angelhood by sacrificing the phallus, okay? Sacrificing the phallus. Achieving perfection, the perfected androgyne, okay? That's what we're looking at here. All right, the eye in the sky. Let's get into this. Now, as I mentioned before, the eye, Algol, okay? Eye of Horus, the evil eye, Ra's al Ghul, the demon's head, on and on and on and on and on. The eye in the triangle, okay? And there is Perseus. Next to Perseus, of course, is Andromeda. Below that is the triangle. There is the eye in the triangle, the Algol rhythm, okay? And of course, the wounded eye of Frank. Yes, the time traveler, the initiate who takes Donnie out of the prison of time. Does he not? Does he not? Yes. I'll tell you, of course, I've seen both versions of this film. I think I have both on DVD. The extended version, I actually prefer the original version without all this sort of added-on explanation. I don't find it compelling. I really prefer the mystery of it, okay? But there we go. Oh, and the eye. This is the Israeli, some sort of gymnastics team. I think they were doing like hula hoops or something. Look at the eyes. Yes, the eye of Horus, Algol, okay? The eye of Medusa. There it is. There we go. And of course, the six-pointed star of the Israeli flag, all right? Ah, yes. This person, this entity, this individual doing the old wounded eye. Yes, what is this person telling us? What is this person telling us? Of course, the wounded eye in the myths is identified with the severed testicle of Horus during the contendings of Horus and Set. Horus loses a testicle, right? The eye, the testicle, the orchid, all very similar kinds of things here. And of course, we went over this, the quote-unquote Marie Antoinette, and its rather stark similarity to the decapitated head of Medusa. All right, very similar kind of imagery there. Clearly not coincidental. There is again Medusa. No, I'm sorry, not Medusa. Well, Medusa. Marie Antoinette, whomever, holding her own head, her hair on fire, the flames, the burning building, Gojira, Godzilla. We went over all that. We don't need to go over all that again. But let's see what this all relates to. And just bear this in mind, the secret rites of Samothrace, one of the major mystery cult locations in the ancient world, which is represented in the Olympics, in the closing ceremony, is it not? Yes, by the victory of Samothrace. Yes. As I wrote, some might be tempted to just see this as the victory of Samothrace. In light of the opening ceremony, it should be noted that it's technically a woman with her head and arms cut off. Mithras hates the race of women. Yes, another headless rite. Another headless rite. There we go, friends. There we go. There it is. And notice the stadium is lit up like a starry night, like a star field. They do that quite often at the Olympics for these ceremonies. The background of the stars, right? The background of the stars. And here's the golden voyager confronted by winged victory, Samothrace, Nike. And remember that Apollo in this connection is Mithras Apollo, who, like Nike, like victory, is associated with triumph and victory. I guess the Nike herself is unacceptable to these cultists, so they have to give us the decapitated and mutilated version in to prefer. On the right there is Mithras Apollo, okay, all in that family. Since it was first displayed in 1883, 2 decades after its discovery, the marble statue of winged victory has awed visitors to the Louvre. The sculpture's original location was above the theater in the sanctuary of the great gods on Samothrace. Who are the great gods? Who are the great gods? Diodorus Siculus said the Kabiri, or the great gods, were Ideodactyloi. The dactyls were a race of divine beings associated with the mother goddess, Kybele. Kybele, yes. Mithras Kybele, MK. With Mount Ida, a mountain in Phrygia. Phrygia, sacred to the goddess. So there's that Phrygian connection. They're just hitting this stuff hard, man. Hard. Hard. No subtlety here. No subtlety here. This is just straight out religious fundamentalism that you're looking at, folks. Make no mistake, the Kabiri as kakanoi, or crabs, were apparently thought of as amphibious beings. Yes, there we go. According to Clement, the Kabiroi were 3 in number, but 2 of the brothers committed an act of fratricide. The pair later recovered the phallus of Zagreus, who had been dismembered by the Titan gods, and established it in the Shrine of the Mysteries. Who is Zagreus? Well, we saw that before. Zagreus, of course, is the infant Dionysius, who is eaten by the Titans. Okay? And here it is right here. Here, this symbolism is very, I really have to, raise my hat to these people. Whoever did this did their homework, at least. That's the least you can say. I mean, I wish they would do their homework for something a little less unwholesome, but there we go. We're dealing with religious fanatics here, people. We are dealing with religious fanatics. So there is Zagreus, a.k.a. Dionysus, the child, okay? So they're just hitting the symbolism right here, and they're hitting it again right here, as we saw in the opening ceremony, and there's the crown of the sun. Oh, they just will not let up. The twin cross. Who is the twin cross? Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise, a.k.a. Twin Cross. Now, a good friend of mine who once worked in Hollywood and knew Tom and his body doubles believes that this was not actually Tom. This was a body double, but maybe so. I know that Tom does his own stunts. Who knows? Who knows? But there it is. Okay, there it is. And just like the Golden Voyager, Tom falls from the fullness, falling from the fullness like Sophia, okay? Like Phanes, okay? Like Lucifer, all right? All these figures, Icarus, all these figures falling from the sky. Falling from the fullness, the perfection of the stars, the perfection of the palaces of the gods, okay, the mansions, the lunar mansions. And there he is falling. This is the same thing we see. This is the same exact thing we see with the Golden Voyager and the NPCs. And there's Tom, Twin Cross, the Twin Cross, falling into the masses, the unenlightened masses, the earthbound masses, the masses imprisoned by time. And he comes to bring them freedom, all right? Initiation, freedom from the prison of time. Just as we saw with Lady Gaga, Lady Gorgon, or as I like to call her, Lady Gorgon, 2017, Super Bowl, right? And the stars, and This Land Is Your Land, and Poker Face, some 8 months before we saw the situation that I call Heaven Upside Down, or Las Vegas at Mandalay Bay, and the Highway 91 Harvest Festival, the Harvest, right? Poker Face, Stephen Paddock, professional poker player, allegedly, arms dealer. Anyway, there we go. So again, just to show you that we're seeing the same story being told. There are the NPCs on the right and the NPCs on the left. And Tom is the twin of the Golden Voyager. Tom comes to bring enlightenment to the masses. Oh, yes. Well, there we go. Is Tom and the Cinematic Sybil, Minority Report. Look at how short she is. My goodness, Samantha Morton is very, very short. Tom Cruise is about, what, 5'5", 5'6", maybe? She almost looks like she's under 6 feet. Unless he's standing on a box, on a jilly box, as they call them. Anyway, there's Tom falling falling from the fullness, descending to earth to bring enlightenment to the masses. Now, I don't know if you noticed this, if you saw Minority Report, but this chap here playing the piano with this elaborate outfit here and the presence of Tom Cruise reminded me of this, Gideon in Minority Report, that the prison master, all the prisoners kept in suspended animation. He sits there and he plays the organ for them. You know, and actually, they kind of look a bit alike. That guy looks not unlike Gideon from Minority Report. And of course, Leo Crow, talk about, if you've seen Minority Report, talk about stellar symbolism. Leo Crow, Leo and Corvus, right? Paris closes the Olympics. Los Angeles turns to Twin Cross for its 2028 mission. And there he is, falling from the fullness. Oh my goodness. Just like the Golden Voyager, just like Lady Gorgon. All right, there it is. The City of Angels, the City of the Watchers, right? The City of the Watchers. There it is. So, there we go, folks. Pure ritualism from start to finish, all in the same family, in the same order of cults, okay? So we have the Saturn symbolism that we saw with the bees and Ra, and the very clear connections with the quote-unquote model for the Golden Voyager being just yet another depiction of Mithras, which is very popular during the 18th and 19th centuries in Paris and France. And anywhere where you had a concentration of Freemasons, you can find lots of Mithraic symbolism, okay? So what we saw in this, let me just recap here. Let me just go home. So what we see here is that this is yet another version of Mithras, okay, and his corollaries, right? This is Mithras Apollo, the Golden Voyager. This is Ra, all associated with Saturn, all associated with transcending the limits of the solar system and the zodiac, okay? So this religion here, it has a theology, it has a cosmology. It also has a liturgy, as we discussed last time, with the rather elaborate liturgy with all the glossolalia in order to come into face-to-face contact with the ultra-terrestrials, okay? The ultra-terrestrials. So all of this Saturnian symbolism here, okay? So the Mithras rising above the prison of time, just as we see with Perseus, okay? Just as we see with Perseus. Rising above the zodiac, ascending to heaven, which is the north pole of the celestial globe, okay? There is Auriga, the house of David, the good shepherd, okay? There it is. Saturn is the outermost planet. It's the final boss that you have to escape in order to reach the stars. As we know in Egyptian religion, the destination for men or pharaohs was Orion. And for their queens and princesses, it was Canis Major, the star Sirius. All right, and that's why we have those shafts pointing at them in the pyramids. Hymn to Apollo, like you've never seen or heard before. Yes, because it's actually the hymn to Apollo Mithras. Yes, the god of victory and triumph. So we see the beheaded and mutilated Nike, the goddess of victory, is replaced by the god of victory because Mithras hates the race of women. Women are a genetic mistake. There's some sort of cosmic accident because the perfected man is the androgynous man, okay, in these religions, and in many of these religions, of course, in Kabbalah and in alchemy as well. Adon Kadmon and the rebus, all right, there are a number of different iterations of this. And of course, Hermaphroditus in Greek religion, yes. So the goddess of victory is replaced with Apollo Mithras, the god of victory. All right? God of victory. Gender swaps. Gender swaps. And as of course we see here, this sort of imagery here. Very clearly an agenda to create antipathy and alienation between the sexes. I think that nobody can argue with that at the present time. And there, of course, is Sol, Apollo, Helios, whomever, and Mithras just chilling out, having some wine and grapes. There we go. And there we go. And again, the piano is a representation of Lyra. Now, Lyra, as we see here, Vega is one of the largest stars in the night sky, okay? And there's also the Ring Nebula, which is of particular interest to Freemasons and so on, as it appeared, I believe, in 1782, all right? Maybe a little bit later. And of course, as we saw here, that part of the sky is extraordinarily interesting to somebody in the space programs, as they kept the Kepler parked there for, 10 years or so, in between Cygnus and Lyra, the space between Cygnus and Lyra. So that is obviously very interesting. And if you saw my 9/11 work, you see how this is the gate. This is the gate. Cygnus and Aquila are the cherubim that guard the gate of Eden. And I guess you could probably throw in Lyra there, the harp and the eagle, all very similar symbolism there. The seraphim, the burning serpents, the winged serpents, right? And of course, the prison of time, right? This is what we're seeing here, the prison of time that must be transcended and must be escaped, right? They're showing you, they blasphemed, let's just say, committed sacrilege against Christian iconography, no matter how hard they try to gaslight you into believing otherwise, because they have their own religion that they are quite enthusiastic about, let's just say, all right? And we've been discussing it, and we've seen it on display here. I mean, how much more obvious does it really need to get? Okay, I don't know how much more obvious they can make it. I mean, they're making it as blatant as they possibly can. Of course, the Stargate, the portal, right, through which the ultra-terrestrials enter our reality, let's just say, right? And there is a school of thought that argues that they're all time travelers, so that might make a little bit of sense here. And infinite time. The first principle is infinite time, escaping finite time, and traveling, soul traveling, astral traveling into infinite time and space. All right, there we go. The Time Lord, the young Time Lord, yes. Gosh, I don't want to say that this was all kind of Gladio action, but strategy of tension stuff. I certainly don't want to be on the record as saying that. I would never say that this is all just some big strategy of tension on the part of the newly crowned dictatorship of the British Isles, but I would never say that. Let me just go on the record. And the Golden Voyager, yes. Lands in a world that is deserted and mysterious, ready to explore. And gosh, there is that pelvis that looks so much like Baphomet. And if I could get a better look at that, I bet it would be. The hips look like horns. We saw that same kind of imagery with With Beyonce a few years ago at Coachella. Yeah, I'm pretty comfortable in saying that is what we're looking at there. Okay. Yes, transcending time. Yes, transcending time. The clock faces is exactly what those are. And Mithras, the golden voyager, is crowned. Mithras, Saturn, Saturnus, Kronos, Ra. All right. This, I mean, just on the face of it, that is just sinister looking thing there. But yes, I do definitely see Baphomet in the pelvis, which makes sense. And when you understand the symbolism and what that all implies, all right? So please come to secretsun.blogspot.com for more information, for more links, for more videos, all sorts of information. Been following all this very carefully, despite myself. I'm really at the point now that I'm just so nauseated by all this kind of displays. But it's my job. I got to do it. This is what I do. I've got to sort through this stuff, particularly with all the, let's just say, inaccurate analysis that sort of goes off on tangents that serve no one's interests. All right? No one's interests. Well, thank you very much. We will talk soon.